My parents refused to help me pay for life-saving surgery, choosing my sister's wedding instead. Now they're begging me to save them from losing everything. I'm 33 male, and for most of my life I've been the forgotten son. Not in the dramatic, storm out of the house, slamming doors kind of way. It was quieter than that. I was just overlooked. My parents were always more interested in my younger sister, S. She was the golden child. Every achievement she made was celebrated like she'd won an Olympic gold. Every time she failed, there was an excuse lined up to soften the blow. Me? I didn't need help. I didn't need their attention. At least, that's what they told themselves. For a long time, I let it slide. I kept my head down and took care of myself. I figured, hey, at least they leave me alone. And for the most part, they did. But this story isn't just about being the forgotten kid. It's about something much worse. It's about the moment I realized my parents didn't just favor S. They would flat out choose her over me in a heartbeat, even if it meant leaving me to suffer. I was 28 when I got sick. Not like I have a bad cold, but seriously sick. I needed surgery. I needed treatments. I needed meds I could barely pronounce. And I didn't have insurance. I was working a decent job, but not one that offered coverage, and there was no way I could pay for everything on my own. I was drowning in medical bills, and it was terrifying. So like anyone else in that situation, I went to my parents for help. I sat down with them, laid it all out. I told them about the surgery I needed, how much it would cost, and that I didn't have the money. I felt ashamed even asking, but I didn't have any other options. I expected them to be concerned, maybe ask how they could help, even if it was just a little, but they didn't. My dad sat there, arms crossed, and said nothing. My mom, always the calmer one, just looked at me with this blank expression. When I was done explaining, they exchanged a glance, and my dad finally spoke. "We can't help you with that." Oh. I thought I misheard him. What? What do you mean you can't help? "We've already committed our savings to S's wedding," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "It's a big event, we're doing it right." I blinked, completely dumbfounded. Her wedding? You're saying you won't help me with my medical bills because you're paying for a wedding? My mom didn't even flinch. "We want it to be perfect for her," she said, her voice calm. "You understand?" I nodded. My voice cracked, disbelief flooding through me. "I could die without treatment, and you're worried about a fucking wedding?" Dad just shook his head, already done with the conversation. "You're strong. You've always figured things out. This is Zess's time. You'll manage." "You'll manage?" I repeated, my voice rising. "This isn't some small thing. I'm talking about life and death here." But they didn't budge. Their golden child's wedding was more important than my life. I don't remember leaving their house that day. I just remember the burning in my chest, the realization that I was alone in this. My own parents had just told me, point blank, that I wasn't worth helping. I didn't speak to them for months after that. I had to focus on surviving. I took on every side gig I could find. Tutoring, driving for Uber, working odd jobs just to scrape together enough for the surgery. I maxed out my credit cards and ended up taking a personal loan. I had no other choice. It was hell, but I made it through alone. Meanwhile, S had her perfect wedding, big venue, designer dress, flowers, the whole thing. They didn't even invite me. Not that I would have gone. I was still recovering from surgery while they were toasting to her fairy tale life. Fast forward a few years, and my parents found themselves in a tough spot. I'd heard through mutual friends that they made some bad investments, poured a ton of money into a failing business deal. I didn't pay much attention. Honestly, after what they did, I couldn't care less about their financial woes. But then one day, my mom called me out of the blue. I hadn't heard her voice in ages, and she sounded off, desperate. "We need your help," she said, without even a hello. I let the words hang there for a moment, more out of shock than anything else. What do you mean, help? There was a long pause. Then she continued. Your father and I, we've lost a lot of money. The business deal we invested in went bad, and now we're on the verge of losing the house. We need money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, now they were coming to me for help? You're kidding, right? No, I'm not kidding. We're in serious trouble. We need money to keep afloat. We've exhausted our savings. I clenched my fist, my chest tight with rage. So let me get this straight. You couldn't help me when I was facing medical bills, but now you expect me to bail you out because you made a bad investment. She didn't even try to deny it. That was a different situation. S's wedding. A fucking wedding, I interrupted, my voice shaking with anger. You left me to rot so you could throw her a goddamn party, and now you're asking me to save you? We had to make choices, she said quietly, almost as if she believed that excused it. And you chose her. Every single time. You always chose her. Well, now you can deal with the consequences. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. We didn't know it would turn out like this. I didn't know I'd get sick either, I snapped. But you didn't care. You let me suffer. Why should I help you now? At that point, my dad took the phone. His voice was cold, a sharp contrast to the desperation in my mom's tone. You need to understand something, son. We did what we thought was best at the time, but now we're in trouble, and family helps family. I let out a bitter laugh. Family helps family? That's rich, coming from you. Stop being petty. This isn't the time to hold grudges. Grudges? I could barely keep my voice steady. You let me fend for myself while I was fighting for my life, and now you want to talk about grudges? There was a long silence, then he tried again, his voice softer, almost pleading. We're your parents. We did the best we could, but we need you now. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see it. You don't get to play that card. You lost everything? Well, so did I. And I did it alone. You made your bed, now lie in it. I hung up the phone, hands shaking, for my heart pounding in my chest. I thought that would be the end of it, but I underestimated how far they'd go to get what they wanted. A few days later, S called. I hadn't heard from her since her wedding, but I knew why she was calling. I let out a heavy sigh and answered. Hey, she said, her voice tight. We need to talk. I'm pretty sure I already talked to Mom and Dad. They're in serious trouble, she said, her tone sharp. They're going to lose the house. I leaned back in my chair, already done with this conversation. Not my problem. You're being selfish, she snapped, her voice rising. You know damn well they helped you out plenty growing up. I laughed, a bitter, cold sound. Did they? Because from where I'm standing, they never lifted a finger for me unless it was convenient for them. They left me to deal with my medical bills while they threw you a 5-star wedding. That was different, she hissed. Weddings are once in a lifetime. Medical bills are. Medical bills are a matter of life and death, I cut her off. You really want to compare your fucking wedding to the surgery I needed to survive? She didn't have an answer for that. Instead, she tried a different angle. They're going to be homeless. Is that what you want? For your parents to be on the street? I want them to deal with the consequences of their choices. I'm not responsible for bailing them out. You could, though. You have the money, she shot back. You're doing well now, and I got here on my own, I reminded her, without their help. There was a long pause, then she tried again, her voice quieter this time. Look, I know things weren't fair, but they're still our parents. They raised us. Don't you owe them something? No, S, I said, my voice firm. I don't owe them a damn thing, and neither do you, apparently, since you're not exactly offering up your own money. I have a family to take care of, she snapped, her tone defensive. Yeah, and I have a life to take care of. I'm not putting myself in financial ruin to fix their mess. My voice was flat, drained of any remaining emotion. There was silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing like she was trying to think of her next move. And then, in true S fashion, she went for the low blow. You know, after everything they did for you growing up, I didn't expect you to be so heartless. You're just like Dad always said, cold, selfish, only ever thinking about yourself. Maybe that's why they never counted on you for anything." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I didn't flinch. This was her final play: guilt, shame, manipulation. She thought she could break me down, make me feel like I was in the wrong, like I was the one who had failed them. But I wasn't that same overlooked kid anymore. "You done?" I asked quietly. "I don't know how you live with yourself," she said, her voice icy. "I live just fine, S. I live knowing I survived without them, and without you." I heard her breathe sharply on the other end, like she hadn't expected me to be so blunt. Good. Let her feel some of the sting. She was always so quick to point fingers, so sure that she was in the right, because our parents had convinced her she could do no wrong. "They chose you," I continued, my voice calm. "They always chose you. So go help them. You're their favorite, after all." "You're unbelievable," she spat. "They're going to lose everything, and you'll be responsible for it." "No, S. They're responsible for it, and they're damn well old enough to deal with it." She hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time, my pulse still racing. There it was again, the guilt, the pressure, the expectation that I should somehow be the one to fix everything. But I wasn't falling for it, not this time, not ever again. Weeks went by, my parents didn't call again. S didn't reach out either, which was fine by me. I heard through mutual friends that my parents had sold their house. They were living in a cramped apartment now, barely scraping by. Wasn't helping them either. Like, her husband didn't want to throw their savings into a black hole. Funny how that works. I should have felt something, regret, sadness, guilt, but I didn't. I felt free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't tied to their expectations, their demands. I had spent so long trying to be the good son, the one who didn't make waves, who figured things out on his own, and it had nearly killed me. Now I was finally doing what was right for me, and it felt good. A couple of months after that last call with S, I received a letter from my parents. Well, from their lawyer, to be precise. Apparently, they were threatening to cut me out of their will entirely if I didn't help them. The absurdity of it all made me laugh out loud. I hadn't been expecting anything from them for years, and now they thought this would be some kind of punishment. I called the lawyer just to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. "So they're saying if I don't give them money now, they'll write me out of the will?" "Yes," the lawyer replied, sounding a little awkward. "That's what they've instructed." "Well, tell them to go ahead," I said, smiling into the phone. "I don't need anything from them." The lawyer paused, clearly taken aback. "You're certain?" "I'm more than certain," I said. "They can do whatever they want with their money. I don't want a cent of it." And that was it. I was officially done. I could finally close the door on that chapter of my life without any lingering what-is or regrets. As time passed, I moved forward. I focused on myself, my own life, my own happiness. I started dating again, reconnected with old friends, threw myself into my work. I built a life that wasn't weighed down by my parents' expectations or their constant favoritism toward us. And honestly, I felt lighter than I ever had before. No more guilt, no more wondering if I was the bad guy for standing up for myself. They made their choices, and I made mine. Us never reached out again. Not even when our parents' financial situation got worse, which I heard about through a few mutual acquaintances. But I wasn't surprised. She always knew how to disappear when things got tough for her. She didn't care about cleaning up their mess any more than I did. In the end, I realized something important. Family is about more than blood. It's about who shows up when it matters, who supports you when you need it the most. And they hadn't been there for me, so I didn't owe them anything in return. Do I feel bad about what happened to them? Maybe a little, but not enough to regret my decision. You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. You can't save people who would let you drown to save themselves. And honestly, I'm just glad I finally learned that before it was too late.